Ever heard of a true crime story so twisted it actually changed how a whole state handles legal insanity?
Wow.
Well, get ready, because today we're going deep, deep into the case of Charles L. Meach and how
Okay.
his crimes in Alaska, well, they sparked a total legal overhaul.
It really is incredible, isn't it? How just one man's actions can expose,
Yeah.
like really expose the cracks in a system and force us to rethink
Mm-hmm.
how we approach justice, especially when mental illness is involved.
We've got excerpts from Meach's Wikipedia page, which pulls from newspaper articles and legal journals,
Right.
but it's way more than just like a timeline of events.
Yep.
We're going to unpack the psychology, the legal battles, and the lasting impact. This case had like a lasting impact.
It's like peeling back the layers of an onion, really, each layer,
Oh, I like that.
revealing a new complexity about the man, the crimes, and the society,
Yeah.
grappling with the fallout.
So let's start with the man himself. Charles L. Meach, born in Michigan in 1947. His childhood was, to put it mildly, a bit rough.
Right.
His mother struggled with schizophrenia.
Oh, wow.
And he ended up leaving home at 16. He driven around, getting into,
Yeah.
minor trouble, but nothing too
All right.
serious, until he landed in Alaska.
That's where things take, well, a dark turn.
Okay.
In 1973, he murders a 22-year-old grocery clerk named Robert Johnson in Anchorage's Earthquake Park.
Oh, wow.
And it wasn't just a quick, clean crime.
Right.
The level of brutality in this beating was truly disturbing.
That's what I don't get. What could drive someone to
Yeah.
that level of violence? It seems so senseless.
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
The why. The why is always the hardest to grasp.
Yeah.
But in this case, the legal system determined that Meach was not guilty by reason of insanity.
Okay.
He was sent to a mental hospital in California,
Right.
which seems like the right call given the circumstances.
Yeah.
But this is actually where the seeds of future complications are sown.
Because he gets better? Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. Fast forward to 1980,
Okay.
and after years of treatment, psychiatrists believed Meach's illness was in remission.
Right.
He's deemed well enough to return to Alaska,
Okay.
but this time under supervision.
Right.
And get this, he actually starts to build a seemingly normal life.
Wow. Really?
Holds jobs, even attends the University of Alaska. You'd almost think he was completely rehabilitated.
Almost like a success story, except
It's almost like
we know how this ends.
the calm before the storm.
Right.
This period of normalcy
Yeah.
makes what happens next even more shocking,
Oh, gosh.
more difficult to comprehend. It raises so many questions about the accuracy
Right.
of those psychiatric evaluations, and the
Mhm.
challenges of,
Yeah.
predicting dangerousness, even with the best intentions.
So 1982, Meach is seemingly...
It does the unthinkable.
What happens?
Russian Jack Springs Park, a place for families' recreation.
Yeah.
4 teenagers are camping there.
Oh, no.
Excited about a night out at the movies,
Okay.
Meach enters their campsite and shoots them all dead.
Just like that. No warning. No provocation.
The brutality of the crime shook the entire community, like to its core.
I can imagine.
But here's the detail that makes it even more chilling.
Okay.
He bought a .38 caliber revolver off the street before the murders.
Oh, wow.
That suggests premeditation, a deliberate plan to take lives.
He couldn't have been considered cured if he planned that out, right?
It's hard to say.
Yeah. What happened when they caught him?
When apprehended, Meach confessed to the murders.
Okay.
But once again, he pleaded insanity.
Oh, wow.
However, this time, the plea failed.
Really?
The public outcry over these killings was overwhelming,
Yeah.
and the shadow of his previous acquittal loomed large.
Right.
People wanted justice, and they wanted it to stick.
What was the public reaction like? Was there a sense of outrage that he'd been released?
Absolutely.
After the first murder?
Many felt the system had failed them, not once but twice,
Yeah.
and with good reason.
Yeah.
They saw a man who committed horrific acts,
Right.
was deemed insane,
Mm-hmm.
seemingly recovered,
Yeah.
and then went on to commit even more heinous crimes.
Yeah.
It shook their faith in the system's ability to protect them and hold people accountable.
So what happened? Was he found guilty this time?
He was.
Okay.
And the sentence reflected the gravity of his crimes and the community's outrage.
Yeah.
Meach was sentenced to 396 years without parole, the longest sentence ever handed down in Alaska at that time.
Wow. That's a seriously long sentence.
It was a landmark decision.
Yeah.
That signaled a shift in how Alaska would deal with cases involving mental illness and violent crime.
Okay.
The public demanded change,
Right.
and the legal system had to respond.
Okay.
This case became a catalyst for a major legal overhaul in the state.
What kind of overhaul? What changed?
Well, this is where things get really interesting.
Okay.
Meach's case, particularly the Russian Jack Springs murders,
Yeah,
forced Alaska to confront a fundamental question.
right.
How do we balance justice for victims with recognizing the role mental illness plays in crime?
That's such a tough question. It's like walking a tightrope.
Exactly, and finding that balance isn't easy.
No.
In the wake of Meach's case,
Yeah.
Alaska introduced a new verdict,
Oh, wow.
guilty but mentally ill. It aimed to acknowledge the complex interplay
Okay.
of mental health and criminal responsibility. It meant individuals convicted under this verdict would receive mental health treatment while incarcerated, but would still serve their prison sentence once deemed healthy.
So they were acknowledging that mental illness might have played a role in the crime, but it didn't completely absolve the person of responsibility.
Precisely. It was an attempt to find a middle ground,
Okay.
a way to hold people accountable,
Mm-hmm.
while also recognizing that mental illness could impact their actions. It wasn't about letting people off the hook,
Right.
but about ensuring a more nuanced and potentially humane approach to justice.
This is a pretty big change in the law. I wonder, did this new guilty but mentally ill verdict apply to Meach? Did he get any benefit from this legal shift?
Unfortunately, no, the law came too late for him.
Oh, really?
Despite the legal change his case inspired,
Right.
Meach remained incarcerated for the rest of his life
Wow.
and died in prison in 2004.
So his case ends up being this tragic turning point in Alaska's legal history?
Exactly.
He doesn't benefit from the change, but his actions force the system to change how it deals with mental illness and criminal behavior.
It's a poignant reminder
Yeah.
that sometimes even tragic events
Yeah.
can lead to positive change.
Right.
But it's also a stark reminder
Yeah.
that those changes often come at a high cost.
Okay, so we've got the man, the crimes, and the legal change that resulted. But I'm still stuck on the why of it all. Was he truly insane during those murders, or was he just manipulating the system?
Those are the questions that linger, aren't they? And that's what makes this case so compelling.
Yeah,
It forces us to confront the complexities of human behavior,
right.
the limits of our understanding of mental illness,
Yeah.
and the very nature of justice itself. It's a case that's both fascinating and deeply unsettling.
And it seems like it sparked a lot of debate, right? Were people in Alaska satisfied with this guilty but mentally ill verdict, or were there concerns that it was either too lenient or not lenient enough?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
This one we'll dive into next.
Okay.
The introduction of the guilty but mentally ill verdict was far from universally accepted.
Right.
It sparked a complex
Yeah.
and multifaceted debate that continues to this day.
So it's not as simple as problem solved. This verdict just opened up a whole new can of worms. New ethical considerations, new legal challenges.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what makes this case so fascinating. It's not just about the crimes themselves,
Right.
but about the ripple effects,
Yeah.
the ongoing struggle to find the right balance between punishment, rehabilitation, and recognizing the complex role of mental illness in the justice system.
It's like we're trying to solve a puzzle with pieces that don't quite fit together.
That's a perfect analogy.
Yeah.
And what's even more intriguing
Yeah.
is that these questions, these struggles, aren't unique to Alaska.
Right.
They're universal.
Yeah.
Every society grapples with these same fundamental issues.
So what you're saying is this case, as specific as it is to Alaska, actually speaks to larger questions about justice, mental health, and the human condition as a whole.
Precisely.
Wow.
And that's what we'll explore in the next part of our deep dive.
Okay.
We'll unpack the different perspectives on the guilty but mentally ill verdict.
Okay.
Its successes, its limitations,
Right.
and the ongoing debate about its place in our legal system.
Okay, I'm definitely hooked. We've got the backstory, the crimes, and the legal turning point, but the real meat of the discussion, the ethical and societal implications, that's coming up next. Stay tuned, folks, because this deep dive is just getting started.
You know, it's fascinating how this guilty but mentally ill verdict,
Yeah.
or GBMI as it's often called,
Right, right.
was meant to address these very issues, justice for the victims and the recognition of mental illness.
Right.
But instead of simplifying things,
Yeah.
it sparked even more debate and controversy.
Okay, so you're saying the GBMI verdict didn't exactly solve everything?
Yeah,
I can see how it might be tricky.
it is.
How do you even determine like what mentally ill means
Right.
in a legal context?
Right.
What are the criteria?
That's a crucial question.
Yeah.
The legal definition often differs from a clinical diagnosis,
Okay.
and it varies from state to state.
Right.
Generally, it means the individual has a mental illness that impaired their judgment,
Okay.
but didn't completely prevent them from understanding the nature of their crime.
So they knew what they were doing was wrong, but their mental state somehow, like, contributed to their actions.
Exactly.
It sounds incredibly difficult to prove, let alone agree on.
You're hitting on a key point of contention.
Okay.
Critics of the GBMI verdict
Yeah.
argue that it's often difficult to determine, like, the degree to which mental illness influenced a crime.
Right.
And they worry that it could lead to harsher sentences
Oh, really?
for individuals with mental illness compared to those without,
Wow.
even if their crimes are similar.
That doesn't seem fair. Isn't the point of GBMI to offer some leniency,
Yeah.
some recognition that mental illness can play a role?
That was the intention,
Yeah.
but the implementation is where things get messy.
Right, right.
Some legal experts argue that that GBMI hasn't lived up to its promise
Okay.
of providing more robust mental health treatment
Okay.
within the prison system.
Right.
They say resources are often limited,
Yeah.
leading to inadequate care and potentially
Right.
even exacerbating existing mental health issues.
So instead of being like a pathway to rehabilitation, GBMI might actually make things worse for some individuals.
That's a pretty damning critique.
Yeah. Were there any arguments in favor of the GBMI verdict?
Of course,
Okay.
proponents of the GBMI verdict
Yeah.
saw it as a step forward from the traditional insanity defense,
Right.
which often resulted in indefinite confinement in a mental institution.
Right.
They argued that
Yeah.
GBMI at least acknowledged the need for treatment
Okay.
while still holding individuals accountable for their actions.
Right.
It was seen as a way to balance public safety
Yeah.
with compassion for those struggling with mental illness.
So it was less about getting people off the hook and more about finding a way to address their mental health needs
Right.
while still assuring they serve time for their crimes.
Exactly.
It's all about finding that balance, right?
Exactly. But the debate over whether it strikes the right balance is far from settled.
Right.
Some legal scholars and advocates
Yeah.
argue that GBMI hasn't gone far enough
Okay.
in recognizing the diminished capacity of individuals with severe mental illness.
Okay.
They push for more emphasis on therapeutic interventions and reintegration into society,
Okay.
rather than simply warehousing people in prisons where their mental health may deteriorate further.
So it sounds like the GBMI verdict, while well-intentioned, has created this whole like new set of challenges and ethical consideration.
Yeah.
It's like they tried to fix one problem and ended up creating several new ones in the process. Where does that leave us? What's the takeaway from all this?
The takeaway is that there are no easy answers
Right.
when it comes to the intersection of mental illness and the justice system.
Yeah.
The GBMI verdict is a testament to that complexity.
Right.
It's an attempt to grapple with a deeply challenging issue,
Yeah.
but it's not a perfect solution.
Right.
It raises more questions than it answers,
Yeah.
and it highlights the ongoing need for open dialogue, research,
Mm-hmm.
and a willingness to evolve our thinking and our approaches.
It's almost like this verdict is a reflection of our evolving understanding of mental illness as a society. We're realizing it's not as black and white as we once thought,
Right,
and the legal system is trying to catch up.
precisely. The introduction of the GPMI verdict, flawed as it may be,
Yeah.
demonstrates a growing awareness
Hmm.
of the need for nuance and flexibility in dealing with these cases.
Right.
It's a recognition that we can't simply ignore the impact of mental illness on behavior.
Yeah.
But we also can't use it as a blanket excuse for criminal acts.
It's a tightrope walk for sure.
It is.
But it seems like the more we learn about mental illness, the more complicated that walk becomes.
Mm-hmm.
And cases like Charles L. Meach's, they really bring those complexities to the forefront.
Absolutely. Meach's case serves as a cautionary tale,
Right.
but also as a catalyst for change. It forced Alaska to confront uncomfortable truths
Mm-hmm.
about its legal system and its approach to mental illness.
Yeah.
And while the solutions aren't clear-cut,
Right.
the conversation he sparked continues to this day.
So even though he died in prison, his legacy lives on in the form of this ongoing debate. That's pretty powerful,
It is.
even if it's in a tragically ironic way.
It speaks to the enduring impact of these cases.
Yeah.
They ripple outward, affecting not just the individuals involved,
Right.
but also shaping legal precedents, societal attitudes,
Hmm.
and even our understanding of the human condition.
We've been talking a lot about the legal and societal implications, and I
Mm,
keep thinking about the victims in all of this.
right,
Their stories tend to get overshadowed by the focus on the perpetrator and,
right.
and the legal wrangling.
Yeah,
What about those four teenagers in Russian Jack Springs Park?
right.
They were just kids with their whole lives ahead of them.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
It's crucial to remember that these crimes had had real-world consequences,
Right.
devastating losses that
Right.
continue to reverberate through families and communities.
Right.
The focus on the legal and psychological aspects
Yeah.
can sometimes obscure the human cost,
Right.
the pain and suffering inflicted on innocent lives.
It's easy to get caught up in the intellectual puzzle of it all,
Yeah,
the why and the how of these crimes.
right.
But we can't forget the real people who were hurt, the families left behind to pick up the pieces.
It's a reminder
Yeah.
that these cases aren't just abstract legal exercises.
Right.
They involve real lives, real
Hmm.
emotions, and the lasting scars of trauma.
It makes you wonder, what would justice even look like for those families?
That's a profound question,
Yeah.
and it's one that each individual and community grapples with in their own way. There's no one size fits all answer.
Right.
Justice can take many forms,
Yeah.
from legal accountability to restorative practices
Hmm.
to simply acknowledging the pain
Right.
and honoring the memories of those who are lost.
It's like we're trying to navigate a moral maze.
It is.
There's no clear map or compass.
Right.
We're just left to grapple with these difficult questions, these messy realities.
And that's precisely what makes these deep dives so valuable.
Right.
They force us to confront the complexities of the human experience,
Yeah.
the limitations of our systems, and the ongoing search for justice and healing in a world
Mhm.
where there are no easy answers.
It's about facing those hard truths head on,
It
right?
is.
Even when they make us uncomfortable or challenge our preconceived notions.
Exactly. It's about engaging with these issues in a thoughtful and compassionate way,
Hmm.
recognizing that even in the face of tragedy and injustice,
Right.
there's always room for growth, understanding, and
Yeah.
striving toward a more uh, just and humane world.
Okay, so we've covered the man, the crimes, the legal turning point, and the complex debate surrounding the guilty but mentally ill verdict.
Mm-hmm.
But there's still this one lingering question.
Okay.
What does all of this mean for us today?
Right.
Why should we care about a case that happened decades ago
Mm-hmm.
in a state that might feel far removed from our own lives?
That's the key question, isn't it?
Yeah,
What's the enduring legacy of this case?
right.
Why does it still matter?
I'm all ears. What's the big takeaway?
Right.
The so what of this whole deep dive?
Well, the case of Charles L. Meach, as specific as it is to Alaska,
Yeah.
actually speaks to universal themes
Okay.
that resonate with all of us,
Okay.
no matter where we live or what our backgrounds are.
Right.
It forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about mental illness,
Mm-hmm.
about our legal systems, and about ourselves as individuals and as a society.
So it's not just about some isolated case
No.
in a far off state.
No.
It's about something bigger,
Hmm.
something that affects all of us. How so?
The case of Charles L. Meach
Yeah.
transcends geographical boundaries and historical time frames,
Okay.
because it taps into uh, fundamental questions about human nature,
Mm-hmm.
about the nature of justice,
Yeah.
and about our responsibility to those who are most vulnerable in our society.
Right.
It challenges us to think critically,
Mm-hmm.
to engage in meaningful dialogue, and to
Yeah.
constantly strive for a more just and compassionate world.
That's pretty powerful stuff.
It is.
It's like we're taking this journey through the specifics of this one case,
Right.
but it's actually leading us to these broader, more universal insights.
Mm.
It's like we're peeling back layers of understanding,
Yeah,
not
yeah.
just about the case itself, but about ourselves and the world we live in.
Exactly. And that's the beauty of these deep dives.
Yeah,
They allow us uh, to explore complex issues in a safe and engaging space,
right.
to grapple with difficult questions,
Yeah.
and to emerge with a deeper understanding of ourselves or our
Mm-hmm.
communities and
Yeah.
the challenges we face as a society.
So it's not just about acquiring information.
No.
It's about using that information
Uh-huh.
to spark critical thinking,
Right.
to challenge our assumptions, and to maybe even inspire us to be more engaged citizens, more
Yeah.
compassionate individuals.
Precisely. And as we move into the final part of our deep dive,
Okay.
we'll explore how the Charles L. Meach case
Yeah.
continued to shape our understanding of mental illness and the justice system today.
Okay.
We'll look at the advancements we've made,
Right.
the challenges that persist,
Mm-hmm.
and the ongoing quest for a more just and humane approach
Okay.
to these complex issues.
It feels like we've only just scratched the surface of this whole guilty but mentally ill thing.
It's complicated.
It's a lot to wrap your head around, all the nuances and implications.
It really is.
So where do we go from here?
Yeah.
What does the Charles L. Meats case tell us about how we're handling these issues today?
Well, it's a good question, and it speaks to the enduring legacy of this case.
Yeah,
While Meach's story is specific to Alaska,
right.
the challenges it highlights,
Mm-hmm.
they resonate across the country, even the world.
Ow.
We're still grappling with how to best address mental illness
Right.
within the criminal justice system.
Okay, but haven't we made some progress since the 1980s? We've got new medications, therapies, and a better understanding of mental health, right?
Absolutely. Our understanding of mental health has evolved significantly.
Okay.
We've moved away from viewing mental illness as purely a matter of
Right.
personal failing or a character flaw.
Right.
There's more awareness of the biological, genetic, and environmental factors that
Yeah.
contribute to these conditions.
So we're getting better at recognizing that mental illness is a real thing, not just something people make up
Yeah.
or use as an excuse. But how has that translated into changes within the legal system? Are courts better equipped to deal with these cases now?
There have been positive developments,
Okay.
like specialized mental health courts
Okay.
that focus on treatment and rehabilitation
Right.
rather than punishment.
Okay.
These courts often involve collaboration between judges, mental health professionals,
Okay.
and social workers to create individualized plans for defendants.
That sounds promising. It's like they're actually trying to address the root causes of the problem
Exactly.
rather than just throwing people in jail and hoping for the best.
It's about recognizing that incarceration alone doesn't address the underlying mental health issues
Right.
that may have contributed to the crime in the first place.
Yeah.
And in some cases, it can even make those issues worse.
But I imagine there are still limitations, right? Even with these mental health courts and a better understanding of mental illness, it's still incredibly complex.
You're right.
Yeah.
Challenges persist. Funding for mental health services is often inadequate,
Right.
leading to long wait lists and limited access to treatment,
Okay.
both inside and outside the prison system.
Right.
And stigma surrounding mental illness remains a significant barrier to seeking help
Yeah.
and receiving appropriate care.
So even if someone wants to get help, it's not always easy or even possible.
Right.
And then there's the stigma,
Right.
the fear of being judged or discriminated against.
Mm-hmm.
It's like this vicious cycle.
Exactly. It's a multifaceted issue
Yeah.
that requires a comprehensive approach.
Okay.
We need to invest in research, prevention, early intervention,
Mm-hmm.
and accessible, affordable treatment options.
Right.
And We need to continue challenging the stigma surrounding mental illness
Yeah.
so that people feel comfortable seeking help when they need it.
So it's not just about changing laws
No,
or creating specialized courts.
right.
It's about changing attitudes
Exactly.
and creating a more supportive and understanding society.
Precisely. It's about recognizing that uh, that mental health is just as important as physical health
Yeah.
and deserves the same level of attention and care.
Mhm.
It's about creating a society where people feel empowered to uh, to seek help
Right.
without shame or fear of judgment.
It seems like we've come a long way since the Charles L. Meats case.
We have.
But there's still a lot of work to be done.
There is.
It's an ongoing journey,
It
right?
is.
We're constantly learning, adapting, and striving for better solutions.
It's an evolution, not a revolution.
Right.
And it's an evolution that requires all of us
Right.
to participate.
Yeah.
We need to educate ourselves, challenge our biases, and
Right.
advocate for policies and practices
Yeah.
that prioritize mental health and well-being.
So it's not just about experts and lawmakers figuring this out. It's about everyday people like us
Right.
getting involved and pushing for change.
Exactly. We all have a role to play in creating a more just and compassionate society,
Mhm.
one that recognizes the complexities of mental health
Mhm.
and supports individuals and families
Mhm.
who are struggling.
Okay, so that's the big picture stuff.
Yeah.
But what about on a more personal level?
Right.
What can our listeners take away from all this? What's the so what for them?
The takeaway is that mental health matters.
Okay.
It's not something to be ashamed of
Yeah.
or to sweep under the rug.
Right.
It's something to be talked about,
Yeah.
to be understood,
Right.
and to be addressed with compassion and care.
So if you're struggling,
Yeah.
don't be afraid to reach out for help.
Right?
And if you know someone who's struggling,
Yeah.
be there for them, listen without judgment, and offer support.
Exactly. Small acts of kindness and understanding can make a world of difference.
Yeah.
And on a broader level,
Yeah.
stay informed,
Right.
engage in meaningful conversations,
Mm-hmm.
and advocate for policies
Right.
that promote mental health awareness,
Mm-hmm.
access to treatment,
Yeah.
and a more just and humane approach
Right.
to dealing with these complex issues.
It's like that ripple effect we talked about earlier.
It is.
Every action, every conversation, every
Yes.
act of kindness,
Right.
it all contributes
Yeah.
to creating a more positive and supportive environment.
It's about recognizing that we're all interconnected.
Yeah.
We're all part of this web of humanity,
Mm-hmm.
and we all have a responsibility uh, to care for one another.
Okay, so we've come full circle.
We have.
We started with the specific case of Charles L. Meach,
Right.
and we've ended up with this broader message about the importance of mental health compassion and our collective responsibility
Yeah.
to create a more just and humane world.
And that, I think, is the enduring legacy of this case.
Yeah.
It's not just about the crimes themselves,
Right.
but about the conversations they sparked,
Yeah.
the changes they inspired,
Mm-hmm.
and the ongoing quest for a better way forward.
It's a reminder that even in the face of tragedy and darkness,
Hmm.
there's always hope.
Right.
There's always room for growth.
There is.
And there's always a reason to keep striving
Yeah.
for a more just and compassionate world.
And as we conclude our deep dive into the case of Charles L. Meach,
Okay.
I want to leave you with this thought.
Okay.
Let's continue the conversation. Let's keep asking questions,
Yeah.
challenging assumptions, and working towards a future
Yeah.
where mental health is understood, valued,
Yeah.
and prioritized.
And remember, you're not alone in this.
You're not.
There are resources available.
There are.
People who care, and a growing movement dedicated to creating a more supportive
Yeah.
and understanding world.
Thank you for joining us on this
Yeah.
deep dive.
Yeah.
We hope it's sparked your curiosity,
Mm-hmm.
challenged your thinking,
Yeah.
and maybe even inspired you to be a part of the solution.
Until next time, keep learning, keep questioning,
Yeah.
and keep striving for a better world.
Until 68 Waters